All right, welcome into How About Wow. Cowboys fans, what you got to know about still winning the East, still getting into the playoffs, it really comes down to how confident you are the Cowboys can win out. If they do, chances greater than 50%, okay? Like the video if you want to see the Cowboys make the playoffs. Hit it twice if you think they're going to, and please leave a comment down below why or why not. Let's talk about it. Here we go. Take it away, Jimmy.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about this, Cowboys? Yeah!
It's Dawson and Newbear here with you. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love it if you could sub. We go long form 4 times a week. Now, the news broke on Thursday. Jaelen Carter is out for the Rams game. This is a huge piece of it before we get to the playoff computers and the simulations.
Chargers, right?
Yes. Yeah, what did I say? Rams?
Yeah, right city, wrong team.
Okay, yes, they visit the Chargers on Monday night. Jaelen Carter is out. The key there is the Eagles are a top 3 defense with Jaelen Carter for the season. When he has been out of games, which the Cowboys got to face in week 1, there's a decent sample size of it. Their defense actually collapses to the lowest rated defense in the entire NFL. That's how important Jaelen Carter is. He's on a very short list of defensive tackles that might be better than Quinnen Williams. So you put that in your back pocket, and Philly's they haven't been the same team even with Jaelen Carter. Their offense is bottom 10 in the NFL right now, maybe even like bottom 8. And if the defense is bottom 3, that sounds like a team that could lose out to me if Jaelen Carter can't play. Then you go to our buddy KT Kevin Turner. He does a couple of things, including a podcast for The Athletic, and he posted The Athletic's playoff simulator that says if the Eagles lose Monday night and the Cowboys win the remaining 4 games, there is actually a 50% chance the Cowboys make the playoffs. I think it's 51. There's a greater than 50% chance. So Philly's magic number is down to 3. You need to win out and have the Eagles only win 2 of their remaining games. It's the Chargers Monday night loss. They also have the Bills and Raiders, 1-1 in those games, and then 2 against the Commanders. Divisional familiarity. Maybe the Commanders have revenge on their minds from going back last year to the playoffs.
Jaden Daniels is not taking a medical red shirt. That dude's playing.
Yeah, and Dan Quinn has had the Eagles number, throughout his Cowboys run, and then last year a little bit with the Commanders as well. So, to me, it was a massive gut punch, and it deflated your odds significantly to lose in Detroit. But there's no reason to give up hope.
Yeah, I mean, you said bottom 10. Dude, the Eagles have scored 270 points. They've given up 250, or 249, 21 points, 12 weeks. That's not even 2 a game. They're not even 2 points better a game to game, right? Unless I'm completely reading this thing wrong. I mean, they're closer to the Raiders than they are to a division champion. So
yeah. There's something to be said for knowing how to win, and they have mastered their own approach. But at some point, the clock strikes midnight on those kind of teams. Go ask the Chiefs.
The thing about this, right, to the Lions, but that was it. That was the end. That was the margin for error. And they did. And you go, look at everything that happened. CD knocked out. GP maybe playing with a concussion and getting raked over the coals by everyone. The defense can't stop a freaking nosebleed.
3 OPIs.
Yeah, and my goodness, almost no holdings called where their dudes are just getting raked on their way to ruin Jared Goff's day. So everything that could have went wrong did, and your special teams might as well have done. You would have been better if the special teams didn't get off the bus.
Yeah, just kicking in the end zone.
My goodness.
At the 35, you would have gained 6 yards of drive.
417 yards of offense, including the sacks. Which, oh, by the way, what did they have 4 in 4 weeks? Then they had 6 in this game. You had Muhammad had 3 on his own. Hutch had 10 pressures by himself. So you scored 30 points and lose. That was Wade Phillips's big tweet, right? 430 points and you lose. Let's get that dude out coaching this team up. I mean, how much of it's on Eberflus? How much of it's on players? How much of it's squarely on those 3 or 4 plays with Revel? Why can no one say that dude's name? I can't get over it. I keep watching the replay back, and it's so funny.
It's the new Terrell Owens or Terrell Owens.
And it's pronounced Terrell. The thing that's going to be really interesting here is we said a few pods ago that their path was actually easier through the wild card because you can't just count on the Eagles imploding if they beat the Lions. If they beat the Lions and a couple other things go their way. Now, you said it is greater than 50-50 at 51, but it might be the only way, because when you look at everyone ahead of them, it's just the math of it is so, like, you basically have a new reason to hate Michael Parsons. Like, let's refresh that anew. And to be the biggest Caleb Williams fan in the world and hope that they beat them twice. Because if all these teams that are ahead of them basically just split and play average football down the stretch, the dream's over.
Yeah, but I do still think it's possible that some of these teams could end up at 10-7. Like the Packers got to play the Bears twice, the Broncos and
Broncos in between. It goes Bears, Broncos, Bears, right?
The Packers could end the season with 9 wins. If
they just lose out
week 18 and get a dub for sure.
Go 1-4, I guess, down the stretch, 1-3.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways. But to bring it back to Philadelphia, Diana Russini in her Week 14 notes piece gave the inside word on what the Eagles are talking about in coming off of back-to-back losses. The Cowboys got them and the Bears got them. They're trying to shake it off. And the team has had a series of what she calls no BS discussions ahead of Monday Night Football with the Chargers. The message has been stop pointing fingers. We're all done with the finger pointing, said one Philadelphia player. It's not just one thing that's in our way. It's not just Hurts or Saquon. It's not just the offensive coordinator or the offensive line. It's a little bit of everyone. So good luck on that. I think this is probably the 10th time over the last 3 years that they've tried to reset things mid-season. And, Leopards just don't change their spots, especially if you're led by Nick Sirianni. You are going to get a temperamental, reactionary, emotional type of roster, and that's what they have. I think they are saying those kind of things, but I think that's not going to be worth a squirt of urine by the time we get to Monday night and they lose to the Chargers. I can't wait to see what's said post-game.
I mean, Herbert just had hand surgery, and it's his non-throwing hand, and it's not nothing, but there's a lot. The Chargers have a history, and Herbert has a history of finding ways in big games to make mistakes. I mean, look no further than last year's playoff game where he threw more picks in that game than he did for the whole season. Harbaugh's obviously a grown-up, and they're expected to be getting the young stud rookie Omarion Hampton back. And there's a lot to like about that team, the way they compete, and then the dudes they have to do so. My thing coming back to what you're talking about with the Eagles is I'm going back over their schedule, and you go, how many times has another team really, really, really had a day where they've been able to go up and down and stay with them? Like, when you're talking about them figuring out a way to win, it's 10-7 Packers. It's 16-9 Lions, right? They blew a 21-point lead to the Cowboys. And the Bears the 24-15 felt like the Bears had a stranglehold on that game, and that score was not indicative of how that game was played. Conversely, they ran away from the Giants 34-17 one time, but flipped that game around. The Giants gave them, or the other way around, sorry. They ran away from the Giants 38-20, but the Giants gave them 34 and ran away from them. So it's like there's not a ton of – and some of that's the way they want to play, and some of that's the way they dictate, and some of that's the punt on third down, rock fight stuff, field position, don't turn the ball over. But, like, against teams like – Herbert and company, and against teams like a Jaden Daniels-led offense where they're getting Terry McLaurin and some of those guys, back, and they might actually have everyone up. Who do you see them being able to go toe-to-toe with in a shootout? Like, what trust do you have based on what they've done this year? Not that they can't do it because they blew the doors off of Mahomes and company in the Super Bowl, but that was from a front-running perspective.
Yeah. Did I lose you a little bit there? I think I'll just jump in here. I think the biggest thing is that the Cowboys did it, a number of teams have done it, is there's a book out on how to slow down Hurts. And maybe it wasn't known last year, but it's become known this year. Just play zone. And you're going to limit them to under 25 points. A lot of games are going to be under 20 points. So to your point, they need the good defense in order to have impressive victories. And if that's not happening, then I think they could lose to anybody. The way that they're scoring on a per down basis at this point without Jaelen Carter, it really opens up the possibility that the Eagles could even lose both games to the Commanders. I don't know if they're bad enough to lose to the Raiders, who are playing like the worst team in the NFL. Okay, up next here on How About Wow, let's see what else we got here for you. I wanted to dive back into that Cowboys Lions game, and maybe the way this could go bad or worse the rest of the way is the defense reverting to how poor that it was at the beginning of the season before the bye. What do you think of Eberflus's role in the failure? And is it mandatory that they move on from him in the offseason? The defense blitzed Jared Goff on half of his first 6 passes. They had 4 pressures on him. And then they went with only 5 blitzes over the next 29 passing snaps for Jared Goff. They saw the screens were being a big problem. They decided to adjust to have an extra player in order to flow to the ball carrier. And I thought, man, I guess that's a good idea after seeing what Gibbs was capable of doing, especially on that second drive. You're like, wow. But to not go back to it when they're in the midst of not punting again after the punt mid-second quarter, they didn't have to punt the rest of the way. And when the Lions were getting the ball back late and you're down 3 points, I'm thinking, hold them to a field goal. It never crossed my mind that you could get them to punt on their side of the field between the combination of the special teams and the bad defense. To not go back to blitzing or playing more 5 down linemen, that to me is in a game where you need it. You absolutely need to win that game. You would have gone to 39% playoff probability. If I'm the coaching staff, I'm going to the Joneses and saying, I know you like Eberflus. I know you love the fact that Chicago paid the majority of his salary this year, so you basically got a defensive coordinator for free, and you want continuity. But I'm here to tell you we need to see our 4th defensive coordinator in 4 seasons here, and hopefully we'll get this hire right.
Well, just real quick, you talking about Eberflus made me think about Chip Kelly and the Raiders making that change. And I'm thinking about that from a coach and a scheme in similar fashion to the Cowboys taking the opposite approach and making the trade for Q. Because you can change the coach, you can change the scheme, or you can change the players and how they play within it. And that's one thing, that you can't sleep on, that Pete Carroll, maybe he finally gets it right and they give the Eagles a hell of a day, because Chip Kelly was rumored to be running his own offense outside of what Pete Carroll wanted to do. And it was like a separate, thing. And then you look at Eberflus and you go, well, what does Schotty want him to do? Does he just want Eberflus to call what Eberflus is most comfortable with? Or is he putting stuff on Eberflus to say, this is the way we need to play? And whatever the answer to that question is, the most troubling thing is that on Thursday night, they did make a change. And they had a reaction, or they took action based on how their opponent reacted. And then once their opponent started having success, they didn't change anything. And so you talk about everyone having a plan until they get punched in the face. And it's like, how are you going to adapt in game? How do you have the game script? And then how does that change with game flow? And one of the most challenging things about Eberflus right now with this team, with these guys, is you just don't know what he's truly capable of, because he hasn't had 3 levels of the defense playing together well at the same time, hasn't had guys up at those 3 levels at the same time. And for some reason, they're all but refusing to play Logan Wilson, while Kenneth Murray might be playing his way out of the damn league.
I mean, that's a big thing right there. I think, if you don't have the perfect personnel that can play your scheme and it's not working for you, you can definitely look at the players. But to me, I need a coach who's more adaptable, more adjustable, that can find things that work for his players. Schotty helped make this defense significantly better when he went into the defensive meetings around week 4 or week 5. They were getting ready to play Washington. Right. Schotty wanted to make sure he wasn't going to zone up Daniels, who shreds zone but struggles against man. Right. So, just that week alone, tells me that Schotty doesn't have confidence in Eberflus to make the kind of adjustments or play to the weaknesses of the opposition enough. This is why Schotty should be hiring the defensive coaches. If you believe in him, let him find his defensive coordinator, because the work that he did hiring his offensive coaching staff is tremendous. But final point here, this is why people want the Rams defensive staff as well. Some teams operate where our offenses and defensive coaching staffs are in silos, and they're so good at what they do, and we're going to trust them to basically be empowered. And I think that's what Eberflus did with the offense in Chicago, and ultimately got him fired. But the reason teams want to hire the Rams defensive coaches is because it all comes through the same filter, the same context of we are going to teach our guys to be able to do a variety of different things. And based on where the opponent is weak, that's how we're going to attack. And if we have massive weaknesses, we'll figure out a way to mitigate that and figure out a way around that. But we're not coming to coach this team with 30 years of momentum in one scheme that we're going to try to teach players and find new players and bring them in until we have the perfect combination for what this defensive coach does. It's all about adaptability in this league more than ever, because no matter what you do well right now, there's going to be an answer for it in the league. Like, information has become the top currency in coaching, and the best ones can, take different players, mold a scheme around their strengths. And on offense, we've seen that in spades with what Clayton Adams has been able to do. Tremendous success with the Colts running game, tremendous success with Arizona's running game, and now with the Cowboys, and all significantly different from one another.
So you just talked about adaptation, you talked about communication, you talk about implementation, and I could keep going down this, but I think one of the words that's missing from this conversation right now is retardation. And I don't mean that jokingly, and I'm not trying to be cheeky. I mean like the very literal definition, of the word is as you go through talking about like the slowing down, the delayed development, and particularly the mental side of the processes. Because when you think about this season, what was training camp about? It wasn't necessarily about the players. It was about Micah Parsons not being there. And what we were talking about at that time was how different is this defense once they get him signed. Then they move him, and it's Kenny Clark looking like an all-star, but then Kenny Clark, them figuring out how to deal with him. Now it's Q, Kenny, and Osa. But how much 5-2 did they play on Thursday night? So
not enough.
Again, I'm not being funny or tongue-in-cheek about that word. I'm talking about how this season has been played in segments where between injuries, contract disputes, and then guys coming back from IR, like how do you properly evaluate this season? If you're looking at Eberflus and these Dallas Cowboys, so one of the other reasons I was bringing up the Chip Kelly thing is whatever the Raiders do for the rest of the season is going to be completely different than what they've done to this point. So you go into these games and you're betting, or you go into these games from a fantasy perspective and you're saying, hey, this team gives up the 107 yards a game to tight ends. Don't play the Raiders. It would obviously be the opposite way because I was talking about Chip Kelly and talking about offense. But you get what I'm saying is like the Dallas Cowboys for the whole season were terrible at defense. And then they had this 3-game window where they were world beaters with Q. Now do they suck again, or is the truth somewhere in between? Or was Thursday night a blip? And so when we go back at the end of this thing, where they make the playoffs or they don't, if they make the playoffs, we're judging them on what they do in the playoffs. If they don't, we're judging them what they do post-Q, right? Because everything that came before that is a completely different picture and almost doesn't matter. Diggs plays into this as they play the season out, and what they do or don't ask him to do, and the health of his knee and Revel's knee, and everything now being much more acute because every week is a playoff game. You're going to have to win out to get in. So it's from a regular season perspective, this will be the best case to judge someone like Eberflus because it will become objective. It will become objective as long as they are mathematically in the running for the playoffs, and he doesn't do what you need or expect from an elite Super Bowl winning DC down the stretch. Absolutely can move on. But if this defense stays right or stays as right as it was before Thursday night, and they win out and they don't make the playoffs, why wouldn't you go look at the draft in the offseason and say, here's what we need to address to give us the best chance to have a complete team in 2026? What would be so bad if they go post-Q, they lose one time and show flashes of dominance and put themselves in a position where they're playing other teams fighting for their playoff lives, and the only blip is Thursday night? Was Thursday night bad enough if everything goes right for the rest of the season and you just run out of math to can Eberflus? That's a tough question.
It could be. I'm very confident if Eberflus has the right players that fit his scheme and are good, he can be great. I would not want to think the best path forward is to go find new players. Now, you need new linebackers. The defensive line can pretty much do anything on the back end, but, assuming you want to move forward with Bland and Revel, man corners. And if you're going to want to run that much zone and you're asking them to do something different, I don't think it's a great idea to ask man corners to do zone or zone to do man. Like, it's all football, but it's brain types. Am I trusting my legs while watching the quarterback and staying in an area and then having elite instincts to fire once I'm a half tick ahead of the quarterback and I understand where he's going with the football based on my entire life experience of playing this position? Or does my brain have a superhuman ability to mirror what the wide receiver is doing and just stay sticky with him in a Spider-Man sort of superhero way? And I don't think you can disrespect that. Like, that's genetic, or that's 2 decades of football experience leading you to this point. And you can't just go back and rewire all of that stuff. It would take a long, long time. So, this is where I want Schotty to be more empowered. And this is where I need Schotty to go into the front office in the offseason early and say, man, we could make this work. It's just not a good fit with Eberflus, and what we did defensively was in spite of him. It could have been significantly better if we could have snapped our fingers and brought Dan Quinn back in here.
So one of the things that's interesting about what you're talking about is, aren't there more better zone corners coming out? Like, shouldn't there be a draft-rich environment for you to go solve that problem? At the same time, like, you can pretty easily identify guys. Like, you would never go, hey, Deion Sanders, we want you to play man match and we want you to be a Legion of Boom type. Like, the Legion of Boom, part of the reason they existed was because there were limitations to what those guys could do. Like, Sherm was slow. He was long, he was smart, and he was physical, right? So you play to the strengths of your guys. The biggest problem right now is all his guys that he's asking, you're talking about man corners being asked to play zone, they're also fucking hurt. So you talk about the mental side of it. Now you're thinking about what I have to do, meaning what was on the board and how this is supposed to look. And in the VR room or any of the other ways you got prepared to play Madden, what have you, everything in between. But now you're also like, oh shit, my bone just touched my other bone inside my own knee. And that's hard to do. And with Revel a couple weeks ago, when he was sitting on the ground, I was like, oh no, did they bring him back too soon? And it was just that the knee brace was loose. Like, for guys who've never had to, like, remember, growing up, if you're right-handed, your coaches tell you, like, a lot of times you can't wear anything on your shooting sleeves and all that stuff. Remember how big of a deal it was for Kobe to, like, in Jordan, for them to have it on the left arm? When I was growing up, my coach wouldn't let me put a damn thing on the right side if I was pitching, right, or playing shortstop or whatever. And, like, now that you're putting this contraption, like, just because J.J. Watt made it look cool and then did it for the rest of his life, like, doesn't mean these little guys out in space want any part of that conversation. So I hear what you're saying, and I believe in it, and God bless. It's like when the Steelers drafted Kendrick Green, who'd never played center before and weighed about 280, and said, hey, Ben Roethlisberger, enjoy having this in your lap every time you snap the ball. Like, when you ask guys to do things that are different, that's one thing. But the question becomes, are they capable of it? Not are you capable of teaching them how to do it, but are they physically capable, physiologically translating it, right? And the spatial awareness of those things. And my big challenge with the zone versus man thing is the rules are completely different from Saturday to Sunday. On Saturday, as a cornerback, you can have a mug hold of a receiver until the ball is in the air. That's why you almost never see pass interference, even though it always looks like pass interference. It has to be egregious on Saturday because you're allowed to run with that dude way past 5 yards. On Sunday, after 5 yards, if you breathe on the dude, unless Vegas told the Zebras to keep their hankies in their pockets, it's a penalty 100 out of 100 times. So it's a completely different game. So my big thing with DBs when you're evaluating that tape is so many people play man match, copycat stuff from, Saban and Belichick across Kirby Smart now and all these wonderful – look at Dan Lanning out in Oregon, taking the SEC stuff west, right? Like what Ohio State basically functions as the only northern SEC team. Michigan has some of that. And when you ask them to go from Saturday to Sunday, like when you watch Pat Surtain tape, you look at that dude and you go, oh yeah, we're going to put him on the other team's number one corner. And that's a wrap. He's going to be a follow guy. Or you're going to put him on 2 and double 1, like the Belichick game that they used to play off of that. Most of the guys, though, even a lot of the AJ Terrell's little brother, what's the Terrell coming out of Clemson this year? You've seen some of his practice tape. It's ridiculous how that dude looks like he could shut down NFL guys right now. But most of the guys coming out, like when you start talking about day two and the depth pieces and stuff, like most of those guys are a lot harder to evaluate because the game is just so different. So like if what you're talking about becoming man corners is going and saying we want 6'2", 6'3" long, which is what Revel is, which is what Diggs is, and we're just going to ask those dudes to run, you still now need to go find that free safety who can play King Griffey Jr. and Ball Hawk, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Safety, linebacker, edge, tackle, offensive tackle. I think there's a number of significant spots. I just think it's a very significant red flag when a guy's telling you one is just better, right? Like I'm a zone guy or this is what I do. Like that should eliminate that guy. But this is the problem with the Cowboys that, the front office effectively hired Eberflus before they hired Schotty, so this is a perfect opportunity for Brian Schottenheimer to maybe expand his power. And I think he's earned it after this year. He's definitely earned the right to go in there and be like, man, instead of doing the way things the way you guys have for the last 30 years, how about you let me sort of fine tune some of this stuff and bring you up to speed on the exact kind of coaches we're looking for.
So I am going to be a little bit cheeky about this one in as much as, you've talked before about how Diggs said he was 100% ready to play Thursday night and they didn't play him. You've talked about, we've talked about Diggs and Revel and these guys saying I'm a man corner, not his own. Tim Tebow told the world he was a quarterback. Like I'm being a little bit cheeky, but I think players, have different opinions of themselves. They have so many people telling them so many things. Like what does the tape say? What is the game speed and the way that you play? And how does it translate from that laser time at the Underwear Olympics? Like if you trust coaching, and that's one of the biggest challenges in this NIL era that's going to continue to grow, like what people talk about crash outs with CD and GP and the enigmatic nature of wide receivers and DBs and prima donnas, like it's not going to get better now that these guys are getting paid and now that these guys have agents in 8th grade. So, they're going on recruiting visits. They're bringing 5 or 6 of their friends, their girlfriends. It's not just mom and dad, kid, brother, sister, like entourage coming that early into the process. Is like a lot of these guys are saying this is what I am, but they're wrong. And the thing that bothers me about particularly a rookie is like if you take Revel with his traits and say we're going to play zone, but it's really man match, and he buys into that, maybe there's an all-pro future inside of that. The beef with Diggs is that I don't really want to hear what you think you are or what you think is best for you when you've made more business decisions than anybody who's ever like worn number 7. Like they should make him change numbers and not be a single digit guy fan when you're saying you're 100% healthy.
Yeah, it's crazy how injuries have crushed this team. And, Diggs earned that based on being able to take the ball away. But, I mean, we're getting ready for Steelers-Ravens this week, big AFC North showdown. Who's the best Ravens corner? Chidobe Awuzie, drafted by the Cowboys 10 years ago, could not stay healthy for his entire rookie contract, goes to the Bengals. All of a sudden, he's a Pro Bowler. Now he's with the Ravens. He's their best corner. Like this defense should look totally different if the Cowboys had been able to keep guys healthy. And right now we're dealing with it again in Diggs and Bland.
Who's the one you always
piece
talk
these
about?
Guys together. What's that?
The one you always talk about is Van Der Esch, right?
Van Der Esch. I mean, it's incredible, the number of starts from all pro level players that this team has lost. Like I'm up for, being critical of Jerry Jones and the coaching staff and whoever needs to be critical of, I will, but I don't think Cowboys fans give enough credit to the insane bad injury luck that has really prevented this Cowboys team from having more playoff success. I think it's been a bigger factor than coaching or Dak or the front office not spending money going for it in free agency than any other factor, maybe even put together. All right, we'll be back soon to start taking a look at Week 15, then the Minnesota Vikings, who are going to catch a massive L on Sunday Night Football to these Cowboys, who should be coming in hot. Till then, for New Bear, I'm Dawson. How about wow?